Hi, friends. I'm Lauren, your Read Aloud buddy, and welcome back to the 13th episode of Lauren's Little Listeners. I am so happy that you're here. Before we start reading, make sure you're cozy and ready to listen. I have such exciting news today. We are starting a new book series, and our character is Pete the Cat. The first book that we're reading today is called Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes, and is written by Eric Litwin. Let's get ready to meet Pete the Cat and open the book to the first page. Pete the Cat was walking down the street in his brand new white shoes. Pete loved his white shoes so much, he sang this song. I love my white shoes, I love my white shoes, I love my white shoes. Oh no! Pete stepped in a large pile of strawberries. What color did it turn his shoes? Red! Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. I love my red shoes. I love my red shoes. I love my red shoes. Oh no! Pete stepped in a large pile of blueberries. What color did it turn his shoes? Blue! Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. I love my blue shoes. I love my blue shoes. I love my blue shoes. Oh no! Pete stepped in a large puddle of mud. What color did it turn his shoes? Brown. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. I love my brown shoes. I love my brown shoes. I love my brown shoes. Oh no! Pete stepped in a bucket of water, and all the brown, and all the blue, and all the red were washed away. What color were his shoes again? White! But now they were wet. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. I love my wet shoes. I love my wet shoes. I love my wet shoes. The moral of Pete's story is no matter what you step in, keep walking along and singing your song because it's all good. The end. All right, little listeners, our second book today is called Pete the Cat Checks Out the Library. Let's continue on our story time adventure as we're opening the book to the first page. Pete's mom is taking him to the library for the very first time. The librarian gives Pete his very own library card. Cool, says Pete. The librarian smiles. Time for the tour. The librarian takes Pete through the library. There is a big desk where people wait to check out books. Pete sees some of his friends reading at a long table. It's very peaceful and quiet. How relaxing! The librarian takes Pete to her favorite room. There are lots of Pete-sized chairs and tables and shelves. There are books of every shape, size, and color. What do I do now? Pete asks. Now you read a book, the librarian says. Well, which book should I read? Asks Pete. You can read any book you like, says the librarian. Pete looks around. There are so many books. Pete picks up a book all about airplanes and jets. He reads it and pretends he is a stunt pilot. He flies a super fast jet and does loop the loops and spirals high in the sky. Then Pete finds a book with dragons, wizards, and unicorns on the cover. He reads it and imagines that he is a powerful wizard using magic spells and a special wand to defend his castle against a fire breathing dragon. Next, Pete opens up a book about spiders and insects. He reads it and imagines that he is a scientist studying all types of critters in the wild. He has to be very still to study some critters and very fast to study others. Then Pete chooses a book with all sorts of scary monsters on the cover. It is a book of fairy tales. Pete reads it and pretends that he is in a dark, spooky forest trying to outsmart a big, bad wolf. Pete puts that book back on the shelf. It is too scary. Pete opens up a book about the pyramids in Egypt. He reads it and pretends that he is an explorer riding a camel across the desert and climbing to the top of a giant pyramid. Next, Pete picks a book with all sorts of robots on the cover. He reads it and imagines that he is a robot at a robot dance party. His arms and legs make whizzing sounds when he moves. When Robot Pete speaks, he says, bleep, bloop, bleep. Next, Pete picks up a book about superheroes. He reads it and makes believe that he is a superhero. He flies around the city in a colorful cape, chasing bad guys and saving the day. Then Pete spots a big book about the ocean and all its creatures. He reads it and imagines that he is a scientist in a submarine deep in the Atlantic Ocean, looking for whales, squids, and sharks. There are so many wonderful books to read at the library. Pete can be whatever he imagines with a book. Reading is super groovy. The end. The third book that we are reading today is called Pete the Cat, Pete's Big Lunch. Let's open up to the first page as we're continuing on our story time adventure. Here comes Pete. It is lunchtime. Pete is ready to eat. What should Pete eat? A sandwich would be nice. Yes, Pete wants a sandwich. Pete opens up the fridge. He takes out a loaf of bread. He finds a yummy fish. He adds tomato and mayo. Pete looks at his sandwich. It is too small. Something is missing. Pete knows what it needs. His sandwich needs an apple. Pete loves apples. His sandwich needs crackers. Crackers are crunchy. Pete loves crunchy crackers. Pete looks at his sandwich again. It is still too small. Pete is very hungry. Pete adds a pickle. Pete adds cheese. Pete adds an egg, 2 hot dogs, a banana, and a can of beans. Something is missing. Pete adds ice cream. He takes 3 huge scoops. Pete's sandwich is too big for Pete to eat. Pete wonders what to do. Pete thinks and thinks. I've got it, Pete says. He calls all of his friends and he asks them to come over. Everyone goes to Pete's house. They are all very hungry. Pete shows them his big lunch. Are you hungry? Asks Pete. Pete's sandwich is big enough for everyone. Dig in, says Pete. Pete's sandwich is good. Pete's sandwich is very good. His sandwich is all gone. His friends are full. They liked Pete's big lunch. Thanks for lunch, Pete's friends say. Thanks for sharing. You're welcome, Pete says. Sharing is cool. The end. Thank you for joining me, your Read Aloud buddy, in this episode of Lauren's Little Listeners. Today we got to meet our new character, Pete the Cat. He went on a couple adventures. Do you remember any of them? We read about I Love My White Shoes, Pete the Cat Checks Out the Library, and Pete's Big Lunch. Which book was your favorite? Let me know in the comments and polls. I'll see you next time on Lauren's Little Listeners for another storytime adventure.